Wednesday, July 11th, 2018, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So the main headline today is the raging trade war between the US and China. I want to talk a bit more about that and what I think. Many of you probably know already, but for my new subscribers, I think it's a big distraction. Of course, it's causing a lot of problems. The mainstream is saying it's reckless. It's going to cause problems in the financial markets. It could bring things down. Personally, I think it's as I said, a distraction, and it's going at the wrong. It's kind of trying to fight the symptom of a bigger problem. And what do I mean by that? Well, someone who's overweight, what do they need to do? They need to exercise more and eat less, right? But doing liposuction will solve the symptom, but it won't solve the problem in the long term. And that's what I think trade wars are. They will kind of solve some of the symptoms by decreasing trade imbalance for the US versus China. But the real problem, the underlying problem, is the monetary system. And why do I say that? Well, I will talk about it later after I look at what the markets are doing this morning. And I'll show you a chart of the US trade balance going back to 1950 and what it has done during that time, especially after 1971 when the world went off a gold standard. And we've had, you know, since then, the petrodollar or fiat money with no anchor. So, yeah, before then, let's go look at the markets. It's 8:30 a.m. London. So what do we got? Spot gold, 1252. It's down about $3. Range has been 1249 to 1257. Yesterday, yeah, we came off later in the day as usual. Well, actually, during middle of the day in the US, we dropped below 1250. I think we went down to around 1247, and it rebounded quite well, but still not going anywhere. Gold, we are comfortably off the recent lows of 1238, of course. Silver is just below $16, 1598, down about 7. Range has been 1587 to 1610. Again, 1620 is a key level on the upside. The Dow has come off this morning, overnight, with the news that the Trump administration is going to issue or publish a list of 200 billion worth of Chinese goods that the Trump administration will put a 10% tariff or so on it. So that was over last night, London time. So the Dow is down just under 1%, 237 points. I mean, we have recovered quite a bit recently this week. So we're still at 24,680. 1% isn't that big of a drop. I mean, 240 points, maybe 10, 15 years ago, that would be a big move, but now it isn't. But it's down, nevertheless. The S&P 500 is down also just under 1%, 25 points at 2769. The NASDAQ 100 future is down 1.1% at 7200. Exactly, actually. The currencies actually surprisingly are not doing much. The major currencies, the pound is basically unchanged, 132.72. Euro is 117.30, down 0.1%, and the dollar is like stuck around 111 against the yen. It's actually up only 2 pips, which is insignificant. With the Chinese currency, yeah, the dollar is up 0.4%. Yeah, it's at 667. Crude oil has come off overnight. It's at 72.39. It's down 2/3%, and Brent crude is down 1.3% at 77.64. A lot of the The feeling is that if you have trade wars, global trade will slow down. Chinese economy will slow down. They won't need to buy as many commodities, and that's probably why we're seeing oil come off a bit. So yeah, the story came out last night. So Zero Hedge reports it. Says we are in uncharted waters. Stocks, yuan, commodities slump as U.S.-China trade wars re-escalate. Excuse me. So it says here the U.S. has released a list of 200 billion in Chinese products that could be subject to an additional 10% tariff. I personally think this is more to do with maybe the way China is conducting its geopolitical policy. And what do I mean by that? Well, I think it's the One Belt, One Road. It's the China trading oil in yuan, opening the exchange on March 26th, the new yuan oil contract. China flexing its muscles in the South China Sea. Notice also China is going to open a naval base in Pakistan in the Indian Ocean. So I think that's there's more to it than just the trade. You know, the trade is the trade war story is more of a cover for the public, in my opinion. So what is the mainstream saying? Well, the FT says U.S. to impose tariffs on 200 billion of Chinese imports. So U.S. imports 500 billion a year from China. So that is significant. FT says escalation of trade war between the two economic powers unsettles financial markets. Could this be a distraction as well? Could Trump know that the deep state is taking down the markets and the economy? So he's kind of, I don't know, going all out, you know, because this, I would say, would hurt mostly the globalists, a trade war, and the multinationals, the big corporations. Do they want that? No. So what does the FT say? Donald Trump kicked off the process of imposing tariffs on a further 200 billion of imports from China in a significant escalation of the trade war between the two economic powers, one that directly challenges U.S. corporations, just as I said. I mean, you look at how the Dow has done in the last 15, 20 years with globalization. It's done really well, hasn't it? And it says the new list of tariffs takes aim at multinationals reliant on sourcing from China for materials and components, including automotive parts, food ingredients, and construction. If implemented, they would have a bigger impact on U.S. consumers than the tariffs imposed last week on 34 billion of goods, which focused on manufacturing components. So they added another 200 billion to the 34 billion. I don't think it's started yet. But one thing I wanted to show people is this set of economic indicators I took from the Economist. It's from the end of June 2018. And we can look at the current account balance. So that shows how it's not the balance of trade, but it's still the country's current account with foreign countries. And you can see the U.S. has a huge current account deficit, 465 billion. And then you look at China, it has 121 billion. Yes, it's big, but it's not as big as Japan, who has 196 billion. But Japan is a colony of the United States, right? And why do I say it's a colony? Well, because U.S. troops and military is still stationed in Japan. So Japan is not a free country, really. It's been there since 1945. Britain has quite a big current account deficit, 106 billion. Even Canada has a 53.8 billion current account deficit. But the biggest culprit really is Germany. Look at Germany, 322 billion. So you'd think, why isn't Donald Trump going against Germany? Well, Germany, like Japan, is a colony of the United States. And I know a lot of Germans maybe that watch this might not like this, but it's true. U.S. troops are still on German soil since, ever since 1945. Why do they need to be there? Is Germany really a threat to the United States and to Europe? I don't think so. So you add up all the Euro area, because it's not only Germany. You look at Spain, the Netherlands, and Italy. They have huge, relatively big current account surpluses. So why isn't President Trump going after the EU? Maybe he will, but at the moment he's just going after China, and China doesn't seem to be a big, doesn't have that big of a current account balance or surplus. So I said earlier in the video that going after the problem of trade imbalances through trade wars is like performing liposuction on an obese person, that it would cure, it would kind of cover up the symptoms, but it wouldn't cure the causes. The causes are overeating, under-exercising, right? Sometimes it could be other problems, of course. I'm not saying it could only that, hormonal problems. But yeah, so what's the underlying problem? Well, the underlying problem, in my opinion, is the monetary system. We have been for world trade since 1971 on an irredeemable debt-based monetary system. What does that mean, irredeemable? Well, it means that you can never pay your bills as a sovereign country, because you cannot, there's no, how can I say, you cannot extinguish a debt with other countries because you are paying with debt. Fiat money is debt. Prior to 1971, the United States could extinguish its debts by delivering gold to other countries, and other countries indirectly would do the same because they would need the dollar to pay off their debts with other countries, and the dollar was backed indirectly by gold. And that's why we had a fairly balanced world trade system. And you just have to look at this chart of the United States trade balance. You might say, well, why don't you look at all the other countries? Well, the US was and still is the major country, and it was even more after World War II. So you can see from 1950 till the early 70s, it was hugging that zero line. That meant there was balance in world trade, because it was based on real goods, it was based on real money, it wasn't based on politicians and bankers, central bankers and bankers' whims to just print money out of thin air, and that disrupts everything, and that's what we've got now. So, and that's what I'm saying, this is just liposuction, what Trump is doing. It's not going to solve the system, solve the problem of imbalance. We need to go back to an honest money system where the world is based on reality, not on digits printed or keyed in by bankers and central bankers out of thin air. That's the whole problem. That's why we have the imbalances. If countries had to settle their accounts with real money, they would think twice before running really silly, how can I say, silly policies of trade and so the US has to look at itself in the mirror a bit. I'm not saying it's the only country to blame, but it's the leader. It's been the leader since World War II. And it started out, I know it wasn't just President Nixon. Yeah, President Johnson started the Great Society, the Vietnam War, all the spending, and and then the U.S. couldn't, it came to a point where it overspent. It didn't have enough gold to pay off its trade imbalances, and it closed the gold window. So that's the whole problem. What's one to do, a normal person like us? Well, we just need to make sure that we don't get carried away by all the fear, all the accusations. And I mean, I look at Alex Jones at InfoWars. I used to don't watch him that much anymore. He does come out with a lot of truths, but now it's all, oh, communist China is bad, you know, this and this and that. But I'm sorry, Alex Jones, communist China, and he also blamed the Democrats. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican, but who opened up China to the world? Well, it was President Nixon, wasn't it? It was, he knew it was all, and it's funny that it was President Nixon that took the U.S. off the gold standard. Maybe they knew this all along. It was a plan, you know, the globalist plan. So maybe he is going against the globalists. Maybe he's going to change things. I don't know, but it's all very confusing, of course. I think for us, the minions, so to speak, yeah, we need to just be real, stay focused on living within our means, trying to get out of the system, have physical gold and silver, cryptocurrencies if you want. They're risky, they move around. So there you have it. That's my thought on the trade wars. I think it's a big distraction. It's just gonna disrupt things. And we could be in for some rough times and uncertainty. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, share it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. You can also follow me on Steemit, DTube, and on Twitter. And I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.